morning and welcome to a special live semifinal edition of the Prognosticus on the Varsity Voices Media Network. I'm your host, Joe Freveletti, coming to you on the biggest Saturday of the IHSA football season so far. And the stakes are big. The storylines are loaded, and the Chicago Catholic League is everywhere in the brackets. Joining me, as always, is my co-host and our voice of reason, Dan Freveletti. And today we've got a special guest. Joining us live is someone who knows exactly what it takes to survive this weekend, lead a program, and win a state title. Head football coach of DePaul Prep, last year's 4A state champions, Coach Mike Passarella. Coach, thanks for being here.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. You guys doing a great job with the show. Looking forward to talking some semifinals today.
Yeah, so we've got a huge lineup today. We've got 9 Catholic League teams still alive, across Illinois. And today we're going to try and break them all down a little bit. So here's the plan. We're going to go game by game. We'll break down some of the matchups, momentum, some of the key players, and of course, our predictions. So, Coach, before we jump into some of the games here, tell me what it's like to get to this point in the season, get to the semifinals, knowing that if you win this game, you get to go to the state championship game. What's that feel like?
I mean, it's a surreal feeling. I think one of the big things that we all talk about, right, when you get a chance to coach or play, not many guys get an opportunity to get this far, right? The number of different types of coaches and players that get a chance to play for or win a state championship, that number's low. It's a small percentage, and when you get a chance to get here, you're able to soak in and embrace all the hard work, the time, the commitment that it takes to get here. You want it to go as slow as you possibly can, but it ends in a blink of an eye. So it's a very surreal moment and a one of the highest deals orders that you can honestly achieve as a ball coach.
Coach, how does preparation change? So practice, as far as this is a long time for these kids, and you've got to think about injuries, and you don't have a practice squad to call up. Maybe you have some young guys that you can put in, but they probably, in many cases aren't ready. But what's practice like when you get to this point in the season?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's really hard answer, and I say that because we're not just thinking in terms of the length of the football season, right? We're rolling into week 13 right now. Where you're not counting week 0, you're not counting the 20 contact days over the summer and the joint practices that you get because you get up to 4 if you utilize all of them. But you got to think of the student athletes in whole encompassing, right? I mean, after their year, if you have a senior, they play junior year football, right? A lot of these guys go play other sports. So if they roll into a winter sport, basketball, wrestling, their body's in constant fatigue. You start talking about if you're a 3-sport athlete, with a lot of the guys that are in the Chicago Catholic League with the level of talent that we have, you're talking now they're running track, they're playing lacrosse, they're playing baseball. And then you have to balance the summer. And every coach we talk to, it's the same thing. You're dealing with multi-sport athletes because that's kind of what you want. You want a dude that can get after it. And you got summer basketball leagues going on. You got travel baseball going on. So you're trying to juggle all that throughout the deal. And then you roll into your summer contact days and you're trying to really corral it. And you roll into fall camp and you're trying to corral the schedule. So you have to try and identify when's it too much. So by this point, I recall last year, and we had those conversations, you start scaling back practice a little bit, right? You start eliminating 10, 15, 20 minutes practice. Usually a lot of times it's individual. You might cut some of the team contact stuff down just a little bit. You really want to execute what you can. But you get to a point where you start giving veteran days off, right? If a kid's banged up and he's dealing with something with some, bangs and bruises, right? You talk about the difference between being hurt and being injured. If they're hurt and banged up, you're like, hey man, just take a day, get mental reps, spend some more time in the film room. So you have to get a pulse on how the guys are doing and when to scale back to make sure that you maximize their abilities to play on a day like today.
Yeah, so some of the teams obviously, have been to this point before, to the semifinals and the finals. And, I would think that helps to some extent that you've been there before. What do you think the difference is in those teams that's first time getting in the semifinals? I would think the nerves got to be a little bit higher. The little bit unexpected as to what's going to happen or what's going on. What kind of difference do you think there is?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have those nerves, right? That anxiety starts to kick in a little bit, and you don't want to fail. So as a coach, you want to try and really calm it down as much as you possibly can, right? Be relaxed and remind them that, hey, man, you've done this 1,000 times right now, right? You've taken hundreds of snaps at this point in the season. So you want to kind of calm those nerves down a little bit and remind them it's just a football game. And if you stay in the moment and don't worry about what the big picture is, don't worry about what round of the playoffs it is, just think of it as being a game. It definitely helps ease that. But you're going to get a little bit of that anxiety that happens, and it's easier when you're a Montini and you've won, year after year. And you take a team like St. Lawrence this year, right? This is the point where we were able to clip them last year, but they've been in this situation before, and they should expect that, hey, no stage is too big. So it definitely helps remind them, if you're consistent with the Mount Carmels that continue to get to this point, a little bit easier. But if you're a new guy on the block, you need to really calm the minds of a bunch of 16 and 17-year-old kids and keep things simple, right? We go back to managing the practice schedule at this point, just remind them about repetition, remind them about execution, and remind them about taking care of details. So that's the hardest part. With my point last year where we're at this stage in the year, being in this point, 2024, just a constant reminder to myself, a self-reflection, to the coaches. Hey, don't complicate things. Keep things simple. Make sure we're talking to the kids and seeing how they're feeling, and remind them to keep their head up. And they've played a game of football before. It doesn't make a difference if it's a semifinal game or the first week of the season.
Coach, how big are the seniors at this point? Do you notice that you have the ability to rely on them to kind of help manage some of that anxiety that you talked about, or are they just as bad as everyone else? It's again, they're not grizzled veterans who played for 20 years, but they're still kids. So are they? Do you notice that? Hey, I can lean on these seniors a little bit.
It's a great question. I mean, I'll say I think it kind of depends on your group. And year to year, you always know you get a different type of kid that's going to be in there. The locker room changes every year, but to this point, you should be able to lean on them for some veteran leadership, because it's the culmination of all the work over the last 4 years, right? And you give them the reminder. Remember when you walked in as a little peepsqueak as a freshman, right, 4 years ago, and how hard and the time and the dedication and the grind that it took to get here, giving up weekends during fall camp and the long days and the sweat. And the tears, right? If you were in this point, you got clipped and got knocked out, right? And the sadness that goes into it. I said, I want you to take all those emotions and I want you to kind of funnel it towards, making sure that you're leading the right way and that you're leading the direction with the underclassmen, the juniors. You should be able to really lean on those guys. They get it. And I think that was a difference when you go back to last year. I mean, we still talk about it. We were down 14-0 going into halftime against St. Lawrence, and we walked off the field. And someone made a comment to me, from being in the stands, that they felt like we were done. And they said that you can see defeat going into it. And when we went into that locker room, I walked into it. I didn't say anything. I had a senior who grabbed the bull by the horns and was laying into their teammates and changed the energy and brought some juice. And then the comment from that same person was, I don't know what happened, but when you guys came out to the field after halftime, there was a different look in the eye. And everybody asked me what I said during halftime. I go, guys, I didn't say anything. I literally said nothing at all, which is weird because I always have a comment to make at halftime. Every coach does. Yeah. But I went right into, I said, defense, get over here. Offense, go over there. Let's talk about our adjustments and see what we can do. The senior spoke. And it changed and it magnified who we were when we came out in that second field. So you absolutely can lean on your seniors because they know what it takes. They want to remind everybody how hard they work to get there. And no matter who it is, right, you should be able to lean on those guys because they're prepared to be able to win the next one.
That's an awesome story. That is
good. I love it. I'm ready to get out there and play now.
Let's go.
At least the second half. Maybe not the first.
One play at the uncovered guard. Remember, Joe? That's our position for a one play. One play at uncovered guard. Yes.
Right. All right. Well, we appreciate that perspective, Coach, and I know you're going to bring that to some of the games we've got today, which are, as we were talking about, are really good. We've got 9 teams left in the Chicago Catholic League, and let's start with the first game we have, and this is Morris versus Montini. This game is at Montini. Coach, have you played at Montini? Yeah.
Never played at Montini. No,
Yeah,
never
it
been there.
is. It's quite the game day atmosphere. They've got horses, they've got fireworks, they've got flyovers. And I always think, is that an advantage, right? In home field, and it's got to be. And especially when you go to Montini, it's got to be home field advantage. But, anyways, I also didn't realize that Montini is riding a 22 game winning streak coming into this. So they've been pretty dominant, or really dominant over the last 2 years, and but they're going up against a really good Morris team today, um, who comes in with only one loss and was really the number 1 seed until that one loss. So this is going to be a test. It's going to be a test against Morris's running game versus, I think, Montini's defense, which Dan and I have talked about all year. We feel like has gotten better and better over the course of the year, and now they're kind of on par with where that defense was at last year. So I think all those things considered, this is going to be, I think this is going to be a little closer game than people think. I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
You talk about Morris a little bit, and we talk about experience. Morris is experience. They got to this point last year before Joliet Catholic knocked them out, and knocked them out pretty good. But they are a returning team. Those guys have bulletin board material just from getting to this point. Not necessarily against Montini, but from getting to this point and getting knocked out, that they want to advance. And Morris has a strong running game. Caden Kern is their running back, and they've got a returning quarterback in Brady Varner, as well as I think a 3 or 4 year starter. He might be a junior this year, but started since he was a freshman. This name might be the toughest all year. Brogan Kelsevich, but it's spelled with K's and J's and everything else. But I watched a little film on him, and he is 6'4", 270. He can run. I mean, he is a lead blocker on a lot of screens, quick screens, and he's all over the place. Does a great job at the second level. But I think Montini seems to be a team on a roll. And we talked, Joe, about if the strength of Morris's game is the running game, the strength of Montini's defense is those linebackers and their ability to chase down running backs, and they're good whether it's in line, filling a gap, or if they have to run to the edge. So, I think Montini is just going to be too much for them. At home matters at this point, I think, and we talked about Montini's home field advantage. So, I'm picking Montini.
Yeah, and I'm picking Montini as well in this game. I just think they've got too many really talented players all over the field on both offense and defense, and we've seen what they can do over the course of the year. And Morris is talented as well, as you just mentioned, Dan. Some of the players that they've got on their team, but I think they will probably not have gone up against a team like Montini this year, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on them on both offense and defense. So I think it's going to be a little bit too much for them, and I'm going to go with Montini as well in this game. What do you think, Coach?
Ooh, you guys got some pretty good predictions there. I mean, I'll say obviously the whole entire thing that you continue to hear about Montini, even though I haven't played there yet. I hear about the live bowl that goes over there and the great food. So those are two high-end things.
Oh yeah.
Two very important things.
Right.
I listen. We had a chance to see Montini over the summer. We were able to get a joint practice. We got a really good connection. Coach Boo's phenomenal dude. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's Montini that bleeds that maroon and gold, man. He He's been there for a real long time, a phenomenal football coach. He's been in this situation a number of times, right? They get our slot from last year, that 4A Friday night game. If they get a chance to be able to win today, even though Morris is a very experienced football team and been here, I think Montini's would be a little bit too much for them. When you talk about their defense, they don't do anything complicated. They've been running the same defense for years, that 3-3 stack, but they do it really, really well. Those guys fly around to the football. I think one of the things that really stuck out, they came to us over the summer, and you can hear those boys on Montini communicating like no other. I mean, you can hear all the way down the block, down to Roscoe Village, and they do things really well. They fly around, they hit you. There's some thumpers, like you said, Dan, in terms of those linebackers. I mean, those guys can fly around and play some ball. Now, listen, Morris is a really good football team, right? You're talking down that country a little bit. You're going to get some big bodies. They're going to be able to play. But when you got a quarterback who's going to be the best player on the field, and arguably one of the top guys playing for every school that's still playing right now on this Saturday, I think he's going to be much. I mean, that kid is the real deal, the way that he gets the ball out. I think sometimes people forget who their new offensive coordinator is. And, they got an offensive coordinator that's won, more than a handful of state championships, and Charlie Bliss, a guy that can really pick defenses apart with a quarterback like Izzy. I think that Morris is going to be in for a long afternoon. I think Montini needs to be able to get them and, have a shot to really win another state championship this year, 4A.
All right, very good. So we're all on the same page as far as the first game is concerned. And let's move to the next game, which is the St. Francis versus Belvedere North. This game is at Belvedere North this afternoon. Dan and Coach, were you surprised how easily Belvedere North won last week? Because I was a little bit. I had not seen them play, but to take apart a team like that, and put that number of points on the board. Now they are undefeated. They're 12-0. So obviously that says something about them. But I was surprised about last week's result for Belvedere North.
I think it helps, and Coach, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Belvedere North runs the same style of offense as Cary Grove. They run that wing option offense, and I'm just wondering if practicing against it, playing against it week in and week out, which they do. We've kind of teased that it's the I-39-90 offense, and Belvedere North is right there. They literally are intersecting those two highways, but that everyone runs that offense the further west you get and the further south you go. And but practicing against it, whereas you guys are practicing against spread, essentially week in and week out, except even Joliet Catholic this year, and so how much of a difference does that make? I think it makes a big difference. And I think a team like St. Francis that wants to come in and go over the top, is going to be difficult for Belvedere North to defend. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we had a chance. We played a week 2 against St. Ignatius, and they run that split flex bone offense, right? It's a triple option. The surprising thing, and there's no doubt, Joe. I mean, very surprising upset win last week by Belvedere North, right? I mean, Cary Grove, you're talking about a team that's won 6A. They beat East St. Louis in a championship in the past, right? They are a program that really does a great job. So for Belvedere North, which they've only been around for a decade, newer high school, if I'm not mistaken, maybe the early 2010s. To kind of go in and get that big win, signature win, definitely surprise and open some eyes. Now, listen, you get a chance to beat Cary Grove, man. You're making a name for yourself and what you're doing. But then, it simplifies things because now, I don't know how they operate with one way, one platoon, two platoon players. But when you see it and you get coaches that know how to coach against it, it simplifies things. We're used to the spread, a lot of spread offense in our conference, right? And we're all talking to beat spread, and we run defenses to beat the spread. And then you have to come up with a game plan to run the triple option and make sure that guys are disciplined with their eyes and taking care of the dive, taking care of the quarterback, taking care of the pitch man. I think it makes it a lot easier when you get a chance to go up against it every day over the summer and talk about it every day in the program to be able to compete against it. But at the end of the day, that means you still have to execute. And if you get a chance to execute, that means that you're really well coached up, and guys are doing their jobs, which puts any team in a position to be able to succeed when you're playing against a very high-powered, explosive offense in St. Francis that can really put up some points.
Yeah. So you've got You've got their running game, right? Belvedere North, and I think Ryan Ketman is their running back, rushed for over or close to 1,500 yards this year. So outstanding back. St. Francis has seen team, a couple of teams maybe like this. In the playoffs they went on Prairie Ridge, right?
Yeah, Prairie Ridge
And
runs it too. Yeah.
that game came down to a turnover, right? Or one stop, because it's really a tough offense to stop, I think. And but St. Francis has seen it; they've done it, but it did come down to a turnover. So I think it's going to be a difficult day for St. Francis today. I do like what they can do on offense, like you said, going over the top. But I think Belvedere North is on a roll here, and I think they're going to beat St. Francis today.
All right. Wow. Well, I've got St. Francis. Yeah, I'm going with St. Francis. I think that they can get to that magic point that I always call it. If you can get 2 scores up, I think they have the ability to do that with their kind of explosive offense. The wide receivers, Milivojevic, Washington, Tanner Glock, they're just so difficult, and I just don't see that Belvedere North has had the opportunity to practice or play against a team like this, very often that does it this well, that executes, like Coach said, this well. So that's why I'm going to go with St. Francis. What do you got, Coach?
Listen, we saw St. Francis back-to-back years. We were able to take them to overtime last year. I know their quarterback ended up leaving, but they got a pipeline. Coach McMillan's got a pipeline of dudes. And like you said, trying to figure out how you can stop Milivojevic and Washington at the same time, it's hard. They also have a really, really talented junior running back that people tend to forget about. Their offensive line is big. They're physical. If Belvedere North wants to win this game, they have to eat up the clock. But the thing is that St. Francis can score in about 10 seconds. And
Right.
the speed that they have at the wide receivers and the weapons they have, I think is too much. And it was a lot for us to handle. And when you get maybe a team that hasn't seen that, they've seen some option games, and Belvedere's been, seen the option game and practice against it. I think a high-powered explosive offense is very difficult to stop. Who are you going to take out? You have no idea. I think St. Francis wins this football game just due to the pure sheer talent that they have on the field on both sides of the ball.
All
All
right.
right,
Good call.
very good. Here we go. And but our first different, right?
Yeah, Joe. Yep.
Yeah.
You're out on a limb here, buddy.
I feel like I'm always out on a limb every week, and I get comments, about I can't believe you picked against whatever team it might be. But anyways, let's move on to this next game, which is Oak Forest at Providence. And Dan, we'll start with you here. What are you seeing in this game?
Do you know what I'm going to say, Joe, about Oak Forest?
I do, and I didn't want to say it first because, like I said, somebody's gonna, yell at me on in the comment section. Yeah,
generational team alert. Yeah, generational team. Oak Forest, first time since 2008, and a team of destiny. I read all the articles that talk about these teams that they've kind of been building toward this since these guys walked in as little freshmen, Coach, like you said, and they're playing inspired football under first year coach. So there is a common opponent alert too, Joe. So Oak Forest defeated Marmion week 1, 41-28.
Yeah,
so week 1 is a long time ago. Obviously, a lot of teams, there's a lot of things that change, and you have guys that step up and guys that get hurt and all that. They've got very good, very, very good team speed, and they are a big play machine. Providence is going to have to lean on their all-conference defenders. They've got Gavin Farley at linebacker, Blake Garrigan as a DB, and Dom and Felice on the line. So they've got a guy at each level, and I think they have the chance to control the football game with their running game. I talked about it being one of the best non-option, not non-wing T option running games in the state. And they can get some big strikes as well. You've seen the emergence of Curtis Stubbs as a wide receiving threat. Dominic Vita continues to get better and better and better passing the ball. We know he can really run. So they're kind of grown into this offense that they have, and they seem to be like we talked about with some of the other teams, peaking at the right time. I think this is going to be a CCL type victory that strength of schedule will play a factor. as far as who they've played, and where I don't know that Oak Forest has seen a team like this, on their schedule and even on their playoff run here. So I'm going CCL again, Joe, and taking Providence.
All right. Are you in concurrence, Coach?
I am. I think the big thing, you start talking about Providence. Providence had some very, very big wins this year. Beating Loyola in overtime, right? You're talking about some of that experience. Uh, I didn't get a chance to cross over with them, but I did get a chance to watch their film. I mean, they are talented. Like Dan said, I mean, Don Vita, their quarterback, has continuously gotten better, and I get a chance to watch him play a little bit, and you're very impressed with what he's doing. Um, they are very big. They are very strong. They can control line of scrimmage. They don't do anything complicated on either side of the ball. But the one thing that they have is they're really well coached up. They're a very disciplined football team. And when you start talking about in terms of people who've been there that can talk on that behalf, let's not forget they got a new offense coordinator named Adam Nissen, who was the former head coach of St. Lawrence. So he's been in the shoes before. He's been in the semifinals. He was in the state finals 2 years ago. And I've said it, besides him being a phenomenal human being, he's a really, really talented ball coach. He was able to get us last year into things that he does on the offense side of the ball, play calling and schematics, calls a great game. He's going to have those boys ready to go. And you see the growth that Don Vita has taken this year kind of came out of nowhere. And I think he's been one of the more spectacular players in the Chicago Catholic League all year long. I think Providence to be able to take this one.
Yeah, I'm with both of you on this. I think Providence takes this game as well. I looking at it, I thought, I feel like Providence, the way their offense is kind of humming along right now, I think they're going to be able to score and score. And I'm not sure Oak Forest is going to be able to do the same thing on the other side of the ball. They would have to put multiple drives together to keep up, I think, from a scoring standpoint. And I think Providence's defense is just, too good in order to give up the amount of points that I think Oak Forest would need to score in order to win this game. So I'm going with Providence as well.
All right. Yeah, that's a good one. I think that could be maybe one of the more lopsided ones this week. I don't know. I just have a feeling about that one, but we'll see. We'll see. Anything can happen. Yeah, that's why they're playing, right?
That's why they're playing. Yeah. All right. Dan, take us to Fenwick and Nazareth.
Yeah, this has got to be, well, we talked a little bit before we started about our favorite games, and this one is miles apart for me. And speaking of miles apart, these two teams, Joe, 9.2 miles apart.
Not bad.
So, not bad. I thought it might be closer. And I thought, but they do draw kids from the same areas. So there is a nice rivalry there that's kind of built in. Fenwick, I think seems to be playing their best football of the year, and I wanted to talk a little bit about unsung heroes for some of these teams. We talk a lot about the Thieves and for Naz, it's Jackson Faya and the wide receivers, but Fenwick is getting great play from guys like Mike Murphy, wide receiver Will Tomzak, Luke Leone, and probably a member of the all undermentioned team, AUMT, defensive back Josh Morgan, who's going to be a big part of this game this week. He needs to play really well. For Nazareth, Charles Calhoun has been steady. They seem to have a stable of running backs every year. Dylan Wellner, Ben Lukes, Will McGarry, all guys that are big contributors, on either side of the ball that may not get the headlines week in and week out. I mean, what's the better lead into this game from last week? You had Naz that played in like what they called an instant classic, right? Coming back 12 points in under 3 minutes. Fenwick wasn't stressed at all, quite frankly. They kind of dominated their game from the first snap, and both teams are very balanced. They have hard hitting, stingy defenses capable of shutting teams down. I've said Naz is one of the best teams in the state all year. They should be put in that top 5 category. So I think I don't think it's a huge upset if Fenwick wins this game, but I do think I'm going to pick Nazareth based on where I've had them all year.
Yeah, and when I was looking at Fenwick, I thought when the season started, we were talking about the Thies brothers and Jamin Williams and Raphael Stewart, right? 3, 4, 5 guys, and they were all really good and played really well. what I really like is over the course of the season now, and you just mentioned a bunch of the additional names, Dan, of guys who have stepped up and are really talented and have kind of grown throughout the year, throughout the regular season, and now they're all playing real well together, and they're playing at a high level. If it was anybody else but Naz in this game, I would be really tempted to pick Fenwick because I love the way they're playing, and we've seen Jake Thies, Tommy Thies' little brother, grow over the course of the year, and he's become explosive, one of the best backs in the state, I would think, at this point, for how young he is too. But we know the amount of talent on the other side today with Nazareth, and I agree that I think they're one of the best teams in the state too, and their record shows it, and their history. They've been in these kind of tight games before, or tough games before in the semifinals. So I think Nazareth is going to win this game.
Coach, what do you got?
Listen, going into it, this is the game that I circled for the weekend. It's the one that I really have eyes on. I know these two teams extremely well. We've played Fenwick and Coach Battaglia for a number of years now. We played them 3 years ago. We scrimmaged against them over the summer. We opened up with them week 1 this year. And like you said, the Thies brothers are very talented football players. The younger one, the running back, is arguably one of the better players we saw all year. The way that he plays, I mean, he is a difference maker. They do a great job. They don't do anything complicated, right? They're really well coached up. Williams, their quarterback, knows how to operate. They run a really simple defense, but the same thing, man, those guys know how to play within what they're doing. The thing that I'm looking at is I'm looking at the other team, and I'm looking at a team in Nazareth that has been here a number of times. I think they're more battle tested right now. I mean, if you look at what they've done the last couple of weeks, Lake Zurich is a very, very talented football team up in that Northern Conference, and they were able to get them. The week prior, they played against Wheaton Warrenville South. You're talking about a team that has a long history, plays great football. Fenwick's kind of cakewalked their way into here. I mean, they're averaging 40 some odd points a game. They haven't been battle tested in the playoffs yet. You're talking about two coaches that have won state championships. Fenwick won a few years ago. I believe 2021, right?
Yeah.
We know that Tim Radke has probably more than fit to fit more rings that fit both hands. And I
got him on his toes. Yeah.
We got some personal relationships with those guys. I've known Tim for a real long time. Their defensive coordinator is a really good friend of mine by the name of Luke. So I've known Ben Luke since he was a 5th grader. I think Naz is going to be a little bit too much to handle. They're playing at home. They've been tested. They have that adversity effect that they've gotten here by winning some tight games and close games in the playoffs right now. I think they're going to be a lot to handle. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think this is going to be the best game of the weekend. I think both teams are going to be able to get after it. They saw each other over the summer. There was a lot of passion, a lot of energy there. I'm really excited to see how it goes and translates today. I think Naz clips them by a field goal, guys.
Okay.
All right. Ooh, field goal. That will be fun then. If that's the case, that's going to be fun. Must watch.
Yeah. We're for sure going to have to we'll have to have them all on at one time. And that's going to be a good one to watch. And
Joe, I got an email like on Monday of this week that the game was sold out. Don't try and come here. Don't show up. It's sold out.
Nobody offered you credentials, Dan, or anything like that?
I'm shocked. Yeah, I am shocked, Joe. Especially we've got some relationships at Naz. I would think maybe knowing the girls golf coach could get us a couple passes.
You would think. Come on. Yeah. Yeah. We won't get in the way. We promise. We won't get in the way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Don't mind my camera filming everything. Yeah.
Right. All right. So the next game, and Coach, you just mentioned I think the term or word you used was cakewalk, but the next game is East St. Louis and St. Lawrence versus St. Lawrence. And East St. Louis, I combined both names there. East St. Lawrence. How about that? They're going to love that, I'm sure.
Yes.
And I can't edit it out. We're live, unfortunately. Yeah. But East St. Louis has really kind of cakewalked through their playoff games here. They won last week. I think it was 49-0. Hugely talented team. you hear about them and read about them, and oh, that's a really good team. But when you actually watch them a little bit, and I watched a little bit of some of their games and some of their clips, just saying that they're talented and does not do them justice, because they have got difference makers up and down, everywhere on the field, on offense and defense. Guys who can, multiple guys who can just take over a game, and it's really something to watch. How talented of a team they are. And St. Lawrence is going to have their hands full today. It's going to be a tough day for them, a tough game for them. But St. Lawrence has shown some resilience, in my opinion. And I personally did not think they were going to get this far this year. But here's another team that has just kind of figured out over the course of the year. Obviously, they're very talented, but they kind of figured out the best way to use that talent, I feel like, over the course of the regular season. And we talk about one of our favorite players, on St. Lawrence, and Corey Less, their running back. He's good, but he's gotten better and better, where he's now one of the top running backs in the state as well, I think. So, East St. Louis. Why do I keep saying that? God.
Yeah, it's making my day. I'm going to laugh all day.
East St. Louis probably, is one of the teams that, will have some people who can match up and, maybe hold Corey Less down a bit. So, I think this game might be a little closer than people think. I do think it would be an upset if St. Lawrence won this game. But due to the amount of talent that East St. Louis has, and they've played in some really good teams this year, so they've seen really good competition. I'm going to pick East St. Louis in this game. Dan, what do you think?
The East St. Louis is as loaded a team as I have ever seen. Just watching just some clips of film, and obviously those are highlights, but it's just like you see positions or players at every position that are dominating from the line, quarterback, running backs, wide receivers, DBs, linebackers. I mean, everyone. And then I was reading, you can't really tell sizes, or essentially from watching film. You say, well, that looks like a big guy, but their running back, kind of stood out. Myson Johnson Cook, 6'2", 220 running back. He's Derrick Henry. He really is. It's unbelievable. He's kind of got an upright running style too, like that. And I think when you're that big, it's kind of, but he blows by people. He runs through people. He is just someone that he is one of their options for taking over the game offensively, and just one, because they've got guys like Reese Shanklin at quarterback and Ronnie Gammeler at wide receiver, and several guys. They've got guys, probably on the bench that could start for any other team. So,
Right.
Their head coach, Darren Sunkett, he gets great players and he does a great job with them. Reading about their game against Glenwood out of Chatham, they were penalized 25 times. I don't know what that is. That seems a little ridiculous to me. Maybe I know what it is, but I won't say it. They play disciplined football.
Just say it, Dan. Yeah.
Sometimes when you get out of your area and those officials live right in that area, there might be. It's hard. Every human has bias, right?
Right.
We're born with it. But St. Lawrence has to pull out all the stops, and they've got to play great special teams and try to keep the game reachable with Corey Less trying to control the ball with the running game. Maybe a lot of quick game, because you get pressure so quickly from East St. Louis. So if that's available to them, and if they can do that consistently, they can keep it within reach. And that's as far as I'm willing to go. I think East St. Louis continues to roll here. So I'm picking the Flyers.
Okay.
You guys are onto something. Listen, it's like you said. I mean, Coach Sunkett is a phenomenal football coach. A guy you're not talking about a perennial powerhouse in the state of Illinois. You're talking about a program that is on the map in the country, right? They play a national schedule. They are talented, right? You talk about the running back and the way he goes about his business, how big he is and how physical he is. I mean, they're 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" across the board up front. When you have that size and not just size, athletic ability that goes with it, it's going to make it for a long, long afternoon for anybody that goes up against them. East St. Louis just has too much firepower and too much talent. I mean, they are a program that is just recognized across the country that is going to be difficult. Now, listen, East St. Lawrence has been here. I know those guys pretty well playing them last year in this round of the playoffs. Corliss is a fantastic football player. Gave us some fits last year. Now they graduated some guys. They graduated some of the top defensive players last year. They graduated a quarterback that went to my alma mater, who was a really talented football player. I just think that East St. Louis is going to be too much to handle, and East St. Louis is a very, very good program. But when you have that level of skill sets at every position on one team, it's going to make it for a long afternoon. East St. Louis is going to, they've been good. And you're talking about a team that, like with Glenwood, that had 25 penalties in that game. They still put up 50 points. And Glenwood knocked out Joliet Catholic, right? That kind of gives you an idea of who East St. Louis is and what they're all about.
Yeah, good point.
Good point. Yeah. So the next game we have is Batavia, and this game is at St. Rita. So Batavia, St. Rita. Batavia, I think this is their fourth straight semifinal appearance. They are there every year, and they're talented every year. I think, Dan, you were talking about before we jumped on here how the culture of the program, the community, all the things that you want in place as a football program and as a school, Batavia has. And it shows because year in and year out, they are here. They're vying for a state championship. And this year is no different. So I think some of the key matchups here are, Batavia's quarterback. I remember watching him last year. Here's one of your favorite names, Dan.
Yeah.
Is Michael Vander Luikgeren. Did I say it right?
I think you said it how a European might say it.
That's the only way I can figure out how to say it, unfortunately. He's had an outstanding year. He is so good. If you've watched some of their clips, and he stands out immediately. And I think he's thrown for almost 2,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, and he's only 3 interceptions. And one of the things I thought, if St. Rita was going to be able to win this game, they were going to have to get some turnovers here against a team like Batavia. And but then when I saw Weekgaren only threw 3 interceptions all year, I thought they take care of the ball too. So I think this is going to be a really tough game for St. Rita. I do think it's going to be closer than maybe I initially anticipated, especially because we've seen what St. Rita has done over the course of the last 4 or 5 games. They've just gotten better. They've gotten healthy, and now they're back to that kind of explosive team and explosive offense that we saw last year. And their defense is playing well too. But I do think going up against Batavia that this is going to be a difficult game for Rita, and I'm going to pick Batavia in this game.
Go ahead, Coach. Why don't you go next? Mix it up a little.
That's listen. We talk about it. I had an opportunity to see Batavia a handful of years ago. Coach P. Ryan's been there for a number of years and does a great job with that program. They're one. The community out in Batavia is one of the loud voices with the one town, one team aspect, and you really feel that when you're there. I mean, Santa Rita is not an easy place to go to and play, right? Santa Rita is going to be a very tough physical opponent. But if there's someone that can match up with them, I think it is a team like Batavia. They play some really good football. Those guys have been playing together since they were peewees. They know how to play off of one another. They are deep. They are talented. They are extremely well coached. They are explosive. I think Batavia is going to be able to give St. Rita a handful. I wanted to sit here today and talk a whole bunch of CCL winners, but now I'm going to go back to back. I think Batavia struggles against Mount Carmel in the championships. It's kind of what they got clipped by, but I think they have an opportunity to beat a team like St. Rita, and I think they will this afternoon.
All right. Well, it looks like I'm the one out on a limb here, so
All right.
I'll wear the CCL colors for this pick.
What are the CCL colors?
I've got a mix and match on today of green, blue, and red, which goes very well. My wife loves it. Yeah. But Batavia, we all touched on it. How awesome that community is, and different than the one-year wonders that have the community that rises up and then the team maybe falls off. This is consistent. Like, I feel like I heard a story about, when babies are born in Batavia, they get a little stuffed bulldog that's sent to them. I mean, that's how deep they are into building that program and doing it throughout the entire community. But St. Rita's got the Pope. I mean, St. Rita has the Pope on their side. So we can't forget about that. And they also, obviously, when you start talking about community and programs and what they're like, historically, it's tough to match St. Rita and Mount Carmel and some of those that have as great a history as anybody in the state. So on the field, I think St. Rita has figured it out in the last 5 weeks, and like you said, Joe, I think the key has been getting healthy, especially Walter Jones. I feel like that has changed their offense and taken them from a team that kind of was going, 4 yards or 3 yards in a cloud of dust to this explosive offense that puts up 50 points. Now, Batavia is going to be a different animal than Hersey, and they will come in and they're going to be as physical as St. Rita. But I think, looking at this, the draws that have most of these CCL teams at home, I think are a big deal this week. And I don't necessarily love the home field stuff during the season, but I think now it really matters. You're going to have an army of St. Rita people that show up there. And I think it's going to be a difference in this game. I think St. Rita's offense is coming together really, really well at the right time. So I'm going with St. Rita.
Okay. Well, you're on a roll, Dan. So you start us off in our next game here, which is Downers Grove North at Brother Rice.
Yeah, I think if we didn't talk so often about Mount Carmel's Division I packed roster, we'd be talking a lot about Brother Rice's Division I packed roster. Right. And I think this kind of has the makings of a defensive battle. I think this could be the most defensive game, the lowest scoring game maybe that we see out of these that we've talked about. Even though Downers Grove North has a stud quarterback, Owen Lansu, going to Minnesota, and Will Vala are some of the names on the offense. But their true calling card has been their defense. They've given up 154 points all year through, week 13, and so. Right. And with shutting down teams like Glenbard West, Lincoln Way West, York, LT, it is a tough conference that Downers Grove North comes through. They've battled through injuries. However, I think, Brother Rice, that D line that we talk about that makes so many plays, they have the ability to control the game on their own. Like no D line I've seen, to this point. And they are just unreal in how they get after the quarterback and make plays time after time. I think they dominate again today, Joe. I think they pressure Lansu all day, and I think Brother Rice walks away with this one.
Are you? What are you thinking, Coach Passarella?
I think Dan hit it on the head. Brother Rice, you talk about Mount Carmel's roster in the Chicago Catholic League and how deep they are and how talented they are, how explosive they are. Brother Rice is right there with them. I think a name that people continue to forget is Cameron McGee, who's only a sophomore, if I'm not mistaken. And he is arguably going to be the best athlete on the field for any team that goes out there. And I'd put him up there with the East St. Louis roster. Listen, Downers Grove North, like you said, Dan, they are battle tested. They play great competition. The Yorks, the LTs. They clip Glenbard West, the Hilltoppers that are perennial state power. They are a very, very talented football team. They have great players. Obviously, they're going to have one of the better players in Owen Lansue running the show at quarterback. I just think Brother Rice is going to be too much to handle. You're going to have too many weapons. That defensive line, like Dan said, is probably they're up there with Mount Carmel as the best defensive line in the state. And I think they're going to be able to really control, and I think they're going to make it a very long afternoon for Owen Lansue. And I think Brother Rice is just too talented on both sides of the ball with their offensive line, their physicality. It's for Downers Grove to be able to get this one. I think it's going to be closer than people think. It's going to be a 1-2 score game. I think Downers Grove can play really good football, and they've shown that. I just think that Brother Rice is going to wear them down as the game goes on. They're going to be able to be able to move on to the final round.
Yeah, and Dan, you mentioned defensive battle, and I think it may be something like that. But if it is a defensive battle, I'm going to put my money on Brother Rice, just because I know what kind of defense they can play and the type of players they have on the defensive line, which you've all mentioned already. So I could see it being a little bit lower scoring game. But if you're going to rely on your defense to win the game for you, I'm going to go with Brother Rice probably 90% of the time as far as that's concerned. So I'm picking Brother Rice to beat Downers Grove North as well.
Okay, 3 for 3 on that one.
3 for 3 on that one. And here's the last one, and this is Fremd at Mount Carmel. I was thinking, how many home games does Mount Carmel get in the playoffs? All of them? Yeah. They're not going to play the state championship there next week, are they? No, but that's fine. Fremd really comes into this game having kind of rolled as well. And they're battle tested. They played some good games. They're 11-1. Or they've played some really good opponents, and they've had to fight through some big games too. I think last week was a 1-point win over Bolingbrook, which was a really good game. Another one of those that people were talking about, kind of an instant classic. And I love their quarterback.
Go Cats!
Go Cats! He's going to NU. O'Brien, right?
Yeah.
Last year, if you watch him play last year, you thought, oh, he's coming back next year and he's going to be everything as that they've advertised. And he has been, he's been really good. But they're going to go to Mount Carmel and go up against a team that last week just annihilated what some people thought was maybe one of the top 2-3 teams in the state. And deservedly so, because they played really well. The way Mount Carmel stepped up last week and took their game to another level just amazed me. Now, they've got just so much talent, as I'm sure we're all going to talk about, right? And when all of that talent plays to the utmost of their ability in one game, you see what can happen, and that's what happened last week. And I think Mount Carmel does that again today against a really good Fremd team. But I think Mount Carmel comes out of this with a win. I think they may win it a little bit easier than maybe some people, especially in the area where I live, which is the Fremd school district. They think they've got an outside chance here, but I don't think that's the case. I think Mount Carmel wins this game, and they win it pretty easily.
Yeah, I do too, Joe. I just think, like when we talk about East St. Louis, it's kind of the same story. Talent, high-end talent at every level of the football field. And the names are just too many to go through as far as how good they are at every position. Downers Grove, or I'm sorry, Fremd has. We talked about Johnny O'Brien, who is absolutely a stud. They've also got another Northwestern commit, Owen Jakubczak, who's their big guy. I was surprised when I read about Fremd. They've got several two-way players, for a big 8A school.
Yeah.
And it's probably that time of year, Coach, that the two-way guys are gonna give you what they can, and you're thankful for nice, cool, decent weather where it's not leaning on them too much, and you don't have that additional heat to worry about. But I think that's a disadvantage for against a team like Mount Carmel. I think if you had 22 strong, looking at offense and defense, that would be ideal. And to think that they've got to go both ways against some of those guys, especially on the line, that's a real challenge. And I think that's going to make a difference in this game, on top of Mount Carmel just being too talented for just about anyone in the state. So I'm going to pick Mount Carmel. Coach, interested in what you're thinking on this one.
I think this is going to be a really intriguing game. I do think Mount Carmel is a lot to handle. We had an opportunity to go up against them over the summer. We got a chance to practice against one another. Quentin Burrell, I mean, those guys, and that defensive line, man, Joey Quinn, right, Bone Crusher, it's different. They give you a whole entire different deal. That linebacker that's just got an offer from Georgia, I forgot what that young man's name is. I mean, he put a hit on one of our guys that I think my kid's still feeling right now. It's 4 months later. So you're talking about a level of talent that's on par with East St. Louis. But here's the thing, you talk about Fremd. Fremd's good. Fremd is very talented. And you take a look at the path for them to get here. They play in a really, really good conference. They do that crossover. You got the Palatines and the Barringtons. They're going to be battle tested. I mean, Bolingbrook is probably one of the more underrated teams in the state this year, and they were able to get them. That running back at Bolingbrook, I got a chance to watch him last week. Is uber talented. They were able to clip in the second round a team like Lions, who's an extremely talented football team. You can't sleep when you have a kid like Johnny O'Brien that is at the helm, that is probably one of the more poised and calm collective quarterbacks I've seen at the high school level over the years. He's going to give his team a chance to win. I do think that Mount Carmel is going to be a little bit too much. I think they have way too many more weapons. I think the game's going to be closer, right? I'm going to keep it within, the two scores, a 10, 11 point game. I think Mount Carmel does come out on top. I think we talked about it. I think everybody expected last week's matchup with Mount Carmel against Lincoln Way East to be the state championship in 8A. It was unfortunate that Jonas Williams got hurt and they weren't able to win those two football games. Otherwise, they would have been on the other side of the brackets to meet next weekend. But what that final score was very different than what the thought process was going to be. It's hard to continue playing like that week after week. If they do, it's going to be a long day for Frem. But I think that we come back to a little bit more reality. And I think Johnny O'Brien can really keep the game close. But I think that Mount Carmel is going to be too much to handle on both sides of the ball.
Okay, well, very good. That's our last game, and that's going to do it for this special live semifinal edition of the Prognosticus on the Varsity Voices Media Network. Big thank you to Coach Passarella from DePaul Prep for joining us. Coach, your insight was outstanding, and we appreciate you spending the semifinal Saturday with us today.
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on. Always enjoy talking to you guys, and always great listening to what you guys are doing, man. Keep doing a fantastic job. It's awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, and to all of you watching and listening, thank you. The Varsity Voices community keeps growing every week, and we're proud to bring you real coverage, real conversation, and real high school football passion. So, as always, we appreciate you listening, appreciate you joining us live, and we will see you under the Friday Night Lights.